We want to thank the McCall, Donnelly, and Cascade Chambers of Commerce, Valley Soil and Water Conservation District, Maupin Homes, the Star News, the McCall Cascade Store, Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council Incorporated, Pam and Ralph Thier, and Friends of Lake Cascade for sponsoring this summit and bringing us all together. This is, as I said, session one. We're going to have Governor Little will be joining us. And also we're going to have him take a question from Miss Maney's 4th grade class. And that'll start off the summit. Let's see, there we go. Governor Little, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you take it away. Thank you.
Well, it looks like you got a great program, so I'll try and get out of the way of all the different parts and pieces that you put together. Just from the outset, you know, Idaho, and it may not appear as you look out the window where you are right now, is, you know, is part of an arid desert. You know, for the most part, over our history, water quantity has been the most prominent issue in our historical discussions. But equally important to me is water quality, and it's going to get to be more and more that as we go on. Protecting both our supply and quality are just key to ensuring Idaho maintains our sovereignty, that we basically can determine our future only if we take care of both. Anyone who's listened to me for the last couple of years knows my overarching goal, and that's to increase prosperity for everyone here and to retain our kids here in Idaho. And to me, water quality is one of the most critical parts of it. You know, people want to enjoy what we've always had here traditionally. And degraded water quality is an impediment to that. And that not only to the quality of life, but to industry, to development, to everything. And so a lot of these problems can be taken care of, or best taken care of early rather than later. And I see on your program you're going to address a lot of that. The health of our streams and lakes, many of you are at what I call the head of the ditch, at the top of the Payette River drainage, where those of us that live in Emmett are at the bottom of the ditch, as is the whole Columbia River Basin system. So there's a lot of people that have an interest in this issue, whether they're in the Valley County, Boise County area, or whether they're in the Payette and Jim County area, and of course the entire rest of the Pacific Northwest. Agriculture, fish and wildlife, and recreation are all critical. I'm proud of what we've done in the last few years at DEQ to take over primacy from EPA. That will allow the state to do things faster, and it's a really kind of a big layer of bureaucracy in what we do in water quality, and it gives the decision maker to those that are closest to the ground, where they have that knowledge and also where they have that expertise. My focus will continue to be on point source and non-point sources alike, but I believe that those priorities are reflected in our most recent budget proposal, which is taking place as we speak here in the legislative process. I have recommended to the legislature an additional $9 million for water quality, including funds to help small communities struggling to upgrade their wastewater and drinking water systems. And the mayors can either agree or disagree with that. They're going to be following me. I'm also putting additional funds into scent agriculture to implement more best management practices to improve non-point source water quality. These types of collaboratives are what need to be put together between citizens and agencies to identify the problems, and as I said earlier, to address them earlier. That little bit of work early can really resolve a bigger issue. I was pretty involved in the phosphate study on well, then we called it Cascade Reservoir before we started calling it Cascade Lake, and did on that information. You know, we've got some challenges in the Valley County area, just background phosphate that exists, and I'm sure that this group will address that. But the last thing we want in Idaho is blue-green algae. By the time we get blue-green algae, we've already had a problem. What we need to do is do the recommendations before we get that. And it doesn't matter whether it's in Cascade Lake, whether it's in Bradley Reservoir, whether it's in any of the system, whether it's in Lake Coeur d'Alene, we need to do what we can, particularly in this changing climate that we have, to make sure that we've done all we can to prevent that. Of course, you'll also see some incentives from me on what we can do to better manage our upland timber grounds, make sure we don't have those catastrophic fires. We know what kind of water quality issues we have after that. These are all important things we need to do, and I look forward to input from this group and enjoy what looks like a very compelling agenda that you have for you today. So, thank you very much.
Governor, thank you very much for your comments. If you have just a moment, I'd like to have you field a question from Melissa Maney, one of our school teachers here at Donnelly Elementary School.
I'd be delighted.
All right, Melissa, the floor is yours.
All right, this question, it was supposed to be from my students, but today's a teacher work day. So these are my students. I teach fourth grade up here, and we study the foundations of government. And the class tried to develop a list of what their priorities would be if they were governor. And we linked it to the idea of what we study or where we study science, which is in our backyard at Boulder Lake, and the importance of clean water. And we wanted to know, how do you develop the list of your priorities to take care of our community, and where would the priority of Boulder Lake to them, or clean water to the general public, how do you prioritize that? Where does it fall?
Well, I mean, it goes back to what Melissa, thank you, and thank your students. What I said earlier, you know, prosperity takes place in many areas, and if you don't have a healthy watershed, and of course that goes to everything from biological diversity to soil health, water health, to dynamic riparian areas, healthy wildlife, and it's all tied together to increase quality of life, not only for the quantity of water. You know, if we have a better watershed, we won't have to use that precious, as much of that precious storage capacity in our irrigation system. We'll retain it in the ground, in the watershed, in the snow cover. So it's all tied together. I think the issue to me is really short-term versus long-term. Too often we look at the short-term ramifications or long-term, but having a healthy watershed is fundamental to economic prosperity in Idaho, and creating that ecosystem where our kids will stay here in Idaho. So that's my short answer. Pretty complex.
Thank you. They'll be happy to hear that.
Governor, thank you for your time. You're welcome to stay with us through the rest of the day if you want, or I'm sure you have plenty on your agenda, but we appreciate your opening our summit. Okay, everybody, now we're going to transition. We're going to hear from our local leadership. We're going to hear from the mayors. We're going to start with Mayor Judith Nissula. Mayor Nissula, if you don't mind going first. A native of Valley County and with the City of Cascade, after receiving her BBA from Boise State University, she continued with a 20-year career in banking. She's been active throughout the community and has served as a public servant and City P&Z commissioner, as a city council person, and now mayor. And so, Mayor Nissula, our question to you is, How would improving watershed water quality help our community?
The basic about water is that we all have to have it. And I think that in particular, how it's important to our community is between the lake and the river, we have a lot of use in those both of those bodies of water. It's not attractive to any of us to have a lake that gets the algae blooms on there. And it's not particularly pleasing to know that the water that's coming out of that lake is going through our city and the rest of our valley. So it would help overall from a health perspective. I think that there are unknowns out there as far as what not good water quality can lead to. And I think that we as good stewards of our natural resources need to do whatever each individual can do to help with that. And so education, and I hope that's one of the main things that come out of this is education to everyone of what they do. We do things every day. And while we drink water, and that's important to us, it's so much more than that. It's so much more to, we have a lot of people who want to have a more sustainable lifestyle. And through that, you need water to water your garden and do all sorts of things with water that we need to think about. And the importance of that. And as new people move into our area, I'll just share a little story. In particular, our city treasurer, she said she never gave a thought about where her water came from when she turned on the tap, and where the water went when she flushed the toilet. And she said, oh my gosh, I've learned so much of the importance of water and not taking it for granted. And we've got a long ways to go with that education to help all of us, like I said earlier, be better stewards to what we can for our community. And I think that it just goes without saying, you read stories and history stories and all over the nation that the water wars and whatnot. So certainly history tells us that water is very important to our communities and sustaining our communities. And we just need to keep pushing that message forward.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So let's see, next we have Mayor Susan Dorris of Donnelly. Mayor Dorris, I'll do a quick introduction. Susan and her husband, George Dorris, moved to Donnelly in 1993. Susan was the first woman to hold a non-traditional position as district representative for Pacific Gas and Electric. The Dorrises are business owners in Donnelly, owning Flight of Fancy Bakery and Coffee House and GNS Aviation. Mayor Dorris is a mother and grandmother of 7. The future of Donnelly matters. Mayor Dorris, how would improving watershed water quality help the city of Donnelly?
I'll correct the statement. I was not the first woman in a non-traditional job at the Gas and Electric. I was one of about 6 or 8 when they didn't call it diversity then, they called it non-traditional jobs. And that's what I did. Donnelly is kind of unique in this discussion. Both the cities of McCall and Cascade sit on the shores of their lakes. The city of Donnelly is approximately 2 miles east of Cascade Lake, and the city has no direct water flow into Cascade Lake, and we don't abut the lake at all. However, there are 2 drainage ditches that run through Donnelly. We have the east and the west drainage ditches. They both converge and they run into the Eld Tree Farm Pond. Eld's ponds provide an excellent secondary treatment facilities and they remove sediments and phosphates. The water in the east and west drainage ditches is surface and subsurface runoff from the properties to the north of the city. Currently, the properties to our north are irrigated for cattle. However, as our valley continues to grow, a balance between ranching and new residences are going to be a challenge. If money wasn't an object, Donnelly has proposed a secondary holding pond downstream of the existing Eld Pond that would provide additional capacity for the drainage flowing from both the east and west drainage ditches. That was proposed back in 2006 for the Donnelly Transportation Plan. Our lakes are valuable assets for our communities. The rapid drawdown for irrigation during the summer promotes algae contaminant growth. The decline of the water quality has accelerated in the last 20 years. What have we changed? And I think that's our challenge. We as communities in Valley County must have a collaborative working relationship to create a healthy and safe environment for us to play in and for our visitors to play in. And we need to be able to raise our families in a quality environment. Each city has to deal with the runoff from all the tributaries and communities upstream of them, as well as their own contributions. The city of Donnelly, the businesses in Donnelly, and the Donnelly Chamber of Commerce all want the same things: clean, safe water for our community and businesses, a fun place for visitors and our families to play, and a plan for the future of our water system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dorris. Let's see, our next mayor is Mayor Bob Giles from McCall. He served 7 years on the McCall City Council, or has served. Previous career was with the USDA Forest Service in both Boise National Forest and Payette National Forest. As a National Resources Staff Officer, he oversaw soil and watersheds, timber sales and vegetation management, wildlife, fisheries, and range program areas. Our question to Mayor Giles is, why is clean water important to our unique community?
This is Mayor Bob. I pronounced my last name Giles, and thanks for inviting me. It's really great to hear from our other mayors who I know quite well, and I appreciated hearing their comments. So thanks for inviting us and hearing our perspective. I'm going to give you 4 different perspectives from the city of McCall. I'll start with a citizen's perspective. First and foremost, our drinking water. It's really important to us. It's a surface water. Fortunately, because of good work that Idaho Department of Lands, private timberlands, and the National Forest System, the Payette National Forest, we're pretty fortunate that the quality of water is great coming out of Payette Lake. We don't have to spend a lot of money on purification, just simple filtration and a little bit of chlorine. So that's really important to all our citizens, our drinking water. Second perspective is comes from my past career. You mentioned I had worked with the Forest Service, both on the Boise National and the Payette National Forest. And one of the responsibilities I had was fisheries habitat and protecting water quality and wildlife habitat. Most of my friends enjoy fishing and hunting. And as the other 2 mayors talked about earlier, these things are all tied together: a healthy ecosystem, healthy fisheries, healthy wildlife, all depend upon clean water. As an outdoor and sports enthusiast, when I retired from the Forest Service, I had a lot of time to do things outside and really enjoy it. And all of my friends that are doing these kinds of activities have reminded me how important it is that water quality be maintained or improved in some cases. So for us up here in the headwaters, in addition to fishing and hunting, a lot of people enjoy motorized activities on Payette Lake. A lot of folks enjoy non-motorized activity, swimming, simple things like paddleboarding. All of these things we enjoy. We depend on clean water to have a great experience, for us to connect to the outdoors. And the last perspective I'd like to share is as the mayor of McCall. As the mayor, the drinking water part, I mentioned how important that is, and it's a real cost in terms of the treatment. And the better the quality of water that we pump out of Payette Lake, the lower our cost and the less chemicals we have to introduce, and the better product that we can deliver. But it's also important to our manufacturers. Recently, I'll give you one example. Recently, as the good fortune of being in a resort town, a number of microbreweries have sprung up, and they're very high quality microbreweries, and they depend upon clean water that's fairly pure, so that they don't have to do a lot of filtration before they manufacture their product. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, and I guess my closing remarks are thanks for inviting us. A number of my staff are on this conference, and they will be participating in all 4 sessions. So thank you, Gary.
Thank you, sir. Again, it's been great to have all our local mayors share their perspective and kind of tie in the big viewpoint for each community, because we all are in this watershed together.